Well, good morning, Southern Oregon. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad to have you. I'm Alice Lema. I am a local broker with John L. Scott Real Estate here in Southern Oregon. And today we're welcoming back our in-house lender, Giles of Mutual Mortgage. He's going to come on the show as he does every month and talk to us about what's happened in the financial world and how it pertains to us here in Southern Oregon. In the meantime, let's get some of our statistics from the Rogue Valley Association of Realtor website. You can get these for yourself, but we just finished the first quarter 2023, and I've got some news for you. So check it out. Jackson County days on market, 61. That's up from 36 this time last year. Yes, that's double, but I'm here to tell you 61 days average market. That's still a bona fide seller's market in Jackson County right now. Now, if you dive down into these numbers, you'll see different neighborhoods and different kinds of property have different days on market, but that's the county average. The number of listings in Jackson County are up 17.7%, but I'm also here to tell you that's not enough, folks. We need more listings and we need them desperately. The real property prices in Jackson County are down 4.6%, but perspective, that's averaging $615,000 per real property in Jackson County right now instead of $645,000. That's not that bad, folks. Our existing residential sales, excluding new construction, those prices are down only 2%, averaging $390,000 instead of $399,000 from this time last year. As promised, we're reporting our short sale and foreclosure activity. Jackson County last quarter only had 8 foreclosures and 0 short sales. Josephine County, similar experience. Josephine County averaging 77 days on market. That's up from 36 days on market from this time last year. So still seller's market. Again, different numbers if you dive down into certain neighborhoods and property types. The number of listings in Josephine County is down 4.4%. The rural property prices in Josephine County are down 9.7%. But again, perspective, that's looking like $480,000 now instead of $523,000 from this time last year. So still holding their own. The existing residential prices, excluding new construction, Josephine County are down 5.6%. But again, perspective, that's looking like $365,000 in Josephine County instead of $375,000 in Josephine County. Short sale, 0 Josephine County last quarter. Foreclosure activity, 5 sales in Josephine County last quarter. So again, still holding our own. Folks, bring in the listings and let's talk to Giles. Don't go away. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad you could join us today. We have Giles from Mutual Mortgage back. He's one of our beloved sponsors. We appreciate him very much. And he comes on every month to bring us up to speed what happened in the last 30 days, which was monumental. Again, Guy, tell us, last 4 weeks.
Man, well, I think the biggest story right now is, we talked a little while back about some of the crazy numbers that came out with the jobs reports where they were showing over $800,000 jobs that came in. And by the time you really took out all the weirdness, like the population control, adjustment and all the weird things, it was maybe 80,000 jobs that got created during that time. So I'm thinking that, in the next couple of weeks, definitely by May 10th, a lot of these numbers will be reconciled and we'll start to see rates coming down. And, I'm hearing everywhere from, I've been saying it this, some point this year, rates will come down. I was hoping end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter. So right now, I'm hearing everything from, 5.2 to 5.5% is what they're saying. I know I'm getting that look from you. If you're on the radio, you can't see your face right now.
So that's like half a point to a point, maybe.
Yeah. And if you look at that, a point, if we go down a point in rate, and we're talking 1% when we say point. So that kind of goes for if you're charging fees, if you're looking at your rate and all of that. That would actually add about, and I wrote some notes earlier, about 5 million people into the buyer's pool that really can't afford a house right now. So, there's people that, I think I have no free time. I don't know what kind of free time these guys have to do these numbers, but that is a statistic right now. If they go down, 1%, which conversely, what we've been experiencing over the last 12, 14 months is going the other direction. So, a lot of buyers out of the buyer's pool, it's not all good news if it goes down a point. That means that this looming recession, is happening. But as far as from our standpoint, rates will go down and it'll look a whole lot better in the housing market. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to, is just a little bit of reconciliation of some of the numbers that have been coming out. And overall, I think shelter cost is about 40% of what kind of goes into the inflation numbers. And we're on this, I've mentioned it before, this 12-month moving average on these. And the last really high number will be dropping off on May 10th. So we've already seen some relief. It is starting to happen, but I think some of the bigger shifts will start happening in the coming months. So I'm looking forward to that. Still not a bad time to buy. Just like I was talking about recently, is, if you try to catch this thing at the bottom or where it was a year ago when we were in the good old days, but remember the good old days, we were bidding $30,000 over on a house, praying we got it.
A lot of unhappy people on both sides back then. The seller's market just got too extreme, in my opinion. So I'm thinking buying now is probably better than waiting till the rates go down, because the buyers won't have as much competition with each other.
I 100% agree. And I've done the math, all the way, just all the way out, just even a couple of years, you might pay a little bit more. We probably would from what you're renting to buy a house if you don't have a big down payment. But by the time you realize the tax benefits, the appreciation on the house, because they're still talking over 3.4% appreciation, for the year in total. And then you're paying down your mortgage also. There's a lot of benefits. Yeah, you gotta, maybe replace a window or, something on the house. So, it's not all perfect, but overall, just mathematically, it makes a whole lot more sense to have a $400,000 asset appreciating than your 10% down, which is $4,000 or $40,000 sitting in a bank account someplace, just losing to the inflation.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that big of a down payment, there's a lot of ideas that Guy and I have about generating that so that your payment's more comfortable. But I guess, I'm sorry, but I'm worried that if we're going to get how many more buyers did you say? Because we still have a housing shortage, and
they're not all in this valley, by the way. So,
but some percentage of them are.
Not going to kill us. Yeah, it would be at 1 percentage point lower, 5 million buyers that are kind of priced out of the market right now that would not be priced out at that time.
So there's less competition right now, and if we were able to get more sellers listed this spring, we might even out the playing field a little bit.
I think so. We've had for a long, long time, the sellers were in control, and then the buyers were a little bit more in control. And, just a nice balance would be good. So everybody kind of gets to the house they want, and the other people get to get into a house. Mm-hmm. And there are a whole lot more, the demographically 30 to 34-year-olds, which are typically your first time, that's when they're buying their first house. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of them kind of coming up on that age right now. So I think, I don't know, I say a perfect storm. We're getting to the point. I'm still slow. Don't get me wrong. But I'm seeing things that are just coming down the road that could make us really busy quick. And if you buy right now, instead of asking for, $10,000 in closing costs, maybe you just ask them to reduce the price, pay the higher rate, and in a few months you refinance the thing. We're not going to be charging any bank fees to refinance it, but you might even get a bigger bang for your buck because rates are going to be coming down sooner than paying, a bunch of money, or, I think it's good to be strategic about where you where you can put that money. And, it's not guaranteed you're going to have the sellers paying for a lot of anything, but if they do, it's a good conversation to have instead of just the immediate knee-jerk reaction on, we should maybe apply it towards this, maybe just kind of talk about long-term goals a little bit.
And again, I'm watching a lot of buyers in the under 700,000 price range. We're looking at the 300 to 400. And they're getting their closing cost credits from the sellers right now. The sellers are much more willing to play ball like I haven't seen since the shutdown.
No.
So we've got kind of a nice buttery situation brewing, as long as we don't get some huge surge of buyers competing for the too few homes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them will come out of the woodwork. People, even if rates went up to 8% and stayed there, as long as they were just somewhere, so people can just kind of get that in their brain. And I'm not wishing for that on a rate. I don't want to try to sell that, but have them come down and just be something that's constant for a little while. Right now, it's just everything's going up and down,
and it's that volatility that makes it hard to plan, and you can't have your personal monthly finances disrupted by $400 a month every time the Fed decides to do something.
Oh man,
then you can't plan.
No, it is really difficult. Actually, I like to look a little deeper into things, and I never want to be salesy. I mean, if it's the right thing to buy a house, I want to help you get into a house. And if it truly isn't, so don't ever take anything that I'm saying is trying to be salesy, but the numbers do, the math is just the math. And if you look at this, even at 3.75% rate, monthly payment of $1,850 on a $400,000 house. I mean, I shouldn't go too deep into the weeds, but going up with inflation, with the houses going up to $420,000, and say the rate is 6.25%. Now that payment went from $1,800 to $2,500, which is substantial. That's $736 more. But if you look at what people's earnings are, because inflation also caused a lot of the wages to go up. So the average increase on the household was over $10,000 during that time. So when you net the whole thing out, even though your payment went up $700 a month, when it's all said and done, even with counting in taxes going up, everything, you're still probably close to $400 ahead. If it's just averages, because obviously you can't speak to every personal thing, but people are making more money than they were when the rates were really low. So not only is it a good time to maybe negotiate for that house and not have to pay over what it's worth, you're probably making more money. So it's really easy to just look on the surface and say, gosh,
and you're more likely to get the house. See, that's the other thing that people are forgetting about what happened the last couple of years is there was all this arm wrestling and gnashing of teeth, and then only one person got the house.
Oh man, I saw everything but willing to go mow the lawn at their new house for the first I mean, it was
what a great idea. We should throw that in next time.
Oh man, yeah, that's why they don't let me sell real estate. I'd be wheeling and dealing all day long. At least I can kind of just stick to the math on this.
Yeah, although I think cleaning out the gutters, that would be a better one than mowing the lawn. Man. But mowing the lawn would be. But anyway, we're digressing. So, but seriously, if the listeners could run the numbers for their own situation and also add in that 3 to 5% appreciation, because what you're talking about, the difference in people's payment does not even include the bump up for the property being more valuable.
No, absolutely. And, kind of speaking of that, if you go back the last 81 years, because there's a lot of people thinking, oh, housing is going to go down. It's going to go down. I mean, this is nothing like the 4 years after 2006. I mean, we've gone into that a bunch of times, so I won't get too deep into it. It's nothing like that with people with no equity in their house, with just all the weird loans that were out there, all the ARMs that were coming due, the negative amortization loans. Out of the last 81 years, 73 of those years, housing went up. I mean, that's pretty good odds if you were a boxer.
Wow.
7 years. Yeah, 7 years they went down, and 4 of them were after that big crash that again was unprecedented due to my industry in a big way, to be honest with you. And there was one year, so you got 1 year that it just stayed equal, 7 years that it was down. Actually, one of those years it was pretty much equal, but since it was just any down, I counted that, and 73 years that it was up. So
that's shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know anybody that, unless you're going in trying to make a quick buck and sell the house next month, you're gonna do fine in real estate. Most of the millionaires in the world attribute over 60% of their wealth to real estate. And I mean, people are they're more committed to their jobs, they're more committed to the area, more committed to everything when they own a house. And
Yep.
Anyway.
We're talking to Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage, one of our sponsors. Thank you so much for helping us bring the show every week. We're going to have to take a quick break here and say thank you to the other sponsors, John L. Scott, Ashland, Medford, our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, also known as RVAR, and Guy Giles. Thank you very much. The show is going to be repeated tomorrow on Sunday at 6 p.m. So we'd like you to listen in again and hear all of Guy's good tips and forecasting. We're going to ask him a little bit about the banking crisis and what else is coming up for 2023. So don't go away. Guy Giles and I will be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. I'm Alice Lema, a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate, and we're interviewing Guy Giles of Mutual Mortgage, and he's our in-house lender, and he comes on every month. So, Guy, right before the break, you were talking about the changing interest rates coming in the future, and we're predicting perhaps even more buyers than sellers. But I wanted to loop back a little bit. Do you have anything to weigh in on the banking crisis? Because that's awfully prominent in the news, and I'm getting a lot of questions from buyers.
Well,
like, what does it really mean? Does it mean anything?
Well, I mean, potentially it could. You have just a whole bunch of banks, especially this one. I mean, I don't, if you guys are familiar with the FDIC insures up to $250,000 in deposits.
Mm-hmm.
This big one down in Silicon Valley, I think like 90, and I apologize, I didn't know we were talking about this, so I'm trying to remember back. And if you asked me what I ate for breakfast yesterday, but it was well over 80% of the people in that bank had more than $250,000 sitting in that bank.
Wow.
So I don't know if there was an interest to kind of bail out their friends. Honestly, I don't know. The Fed just kind of can pick and choose. They're a private company, and you're going to get me in a bad mood and I'm in a good mood. But really, I mean, Janet Yellen was actually asked about that. She said, if this thing goes deeper and we start having more issues with regional banks, which for the most part, that's the ones we care about. You have these big ones that just get more and more consolidated and more power given, to one group. And she said, we'll take that on a case-by-case basis. We'll vote on it. And if we vote on it and we deem it to be worthy of helping them, we will. And then she corrected herself mid-sentence and said, we have to have a super majority of us voting to do that in order to help them. So who knows? There are a bunch of people over their heads, driving ahead, looking in the rearview mirror is the only way that you can really explain the Feds. I would have loved it if more of them would have held an actual job in their life other than just this. But they, to be truthful, what they've done, even though they were really slow getting at it, they were in denial. They waited way too long. And at this point, they really need to start easing off because they've accomplished what the goal was. And really, inflation just kind of boils down to too few goods and too many dollars. So we had stimulus checks. What was there? 3? I didn't actually get any, but there was 3 of them that went out. And you had at that same time the Fed artificially holding rates down by buying our mortgage-backed securities. So for anybody that doesn't know, when the Fed raises rates, that does not directly result in higher rates for housing. They control just kind of the day-to-day stuff, your home equity lines of credit, your credit cards, cars, things like that. But one thing that they did was they created a whole bunch more buyers for the mortgage-backed securities, which was them buying them. So that helped keep rates artificially low for a little while. And then once they saw that inflation was not transitory, the rest of us knew it. But if they'd have handled it different, it could have been maybe. But either way, they ended up taking trillions of dollars of those mortgage-backed securities, putting them back in, so there was less competition for those. And so consequently, those kind of went up. That was partially why the rates went up. But what they've managed to do now is take some money out of the system. You raise rates, say you're going down to buy a motorhome and you're going to finance it, and it's going to cost you $1,000 a month for that motorhome. And then a bunch of people are doing that because that sounds reasonable. And then rates go up, and now all of a sudden that same motorhome is $1,800. Well, it's all money that was never really there. You're just creating this debt. So if these people decide not to buy that motorhome, that's more money that's not in the system. So that's one way of kind of pulling it out. And now that we have savings rates that are a little bit higher than what they were, which they were 0 forever, you can get maybe 5% on a year if you commit to that. That's more money getting kind of pulled out of the system on the other side. So now we have some of the supply chain that is back in order. It's not fixed yet, but it's better than it was before COVID. So you have more goods out there, less money in the system. So that should translate to lower inflation in the long run.
Well, and is in that scenario, the markets are normalizing a little bit on their own, which is not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing, So if we get the numbers that we should, like I said, some of the highest numbers on the housing, just your shelter costs should be, it's just there on a chart. So, honestly, that last high number will roll off after that, because you have 13 months on there, and then that last month will just kind of roll off. That'll happen again around May 10th of next month. And that should hopefully be the start, because we've already seen the other things kind of easing to it. Now, recession, sure, but actually on our side of things, that kind of helps us a little bit.
Because that's what's encouraging the Fed to drop their.
Yeah, it'll encourage them. It'll translate to lower mortgage rates. The mortgage rates are really tied right to the inflation. So, and then the Fed is the ones that kind of work on the inflation. So they all kind of go hand in hand. But really just the overall picture of everything, we're starting to lose some of the numbers from a whole bunch of stimulus checks. And to be, quite honest, everybody was, when they first got their stimulus checks, everybody paid down their credit card debt. They couldn't go spend it. They didn't know what to do with it. So they paid down their credit card debt. And then as the next stimulus checks came in, they saved a little bit, and then they spent it. And then the next ones came in and they saved and spent it. And now what you're actually seeing is people aren't saving money, and their credit cards are going up because they wanted to kind of keep that lifestyle going. And I'm off on a little bit of a rabbit trail, but all these things do affect, the mortgage rates. And I think right now is a really good time to call Alice to get approved and to be ready to buy a house. And when that right one comes along, do it. And even if we lock you in at a rate and then they drop down in the middle of it, we totally have the ability to float you down to that lower rate. Another thing that we're doing for people is, if you buy with us and then the rates drop in the next couple of years, we're not going to charge you any banking fees to do a refinance.
Oh, that's super cool.
There will be some title, which is a little bit of a reduced, it will be reduced because you had it done not that long ago. But as far as that goes, we're not going to be hitting you up for any money. So I think it is a good time to try to do what you
But
can.
even though the prices have slumped a little bit, and I use that word kind of in air quotes because we're down off of our highs, the prices are still higher than they were by quite a bit. So,
Yes.
losing 2 to 5% of the gain, still puts you at 90 something
Oh, I
percent
know.
left. So I guess one of the fears I have is if the feds lower the rates, will the prices go back up? Will the prices go up again? Are we just going to have to wait and see what the supply looks like? What are your
Well,
predictions for the rest of
yeah.
2023?
Well, yeah, we just have to see what the demand and the supply works out to be. But I would anticipate that they took a little bit of a breather, but then they start going up again. I mean, as far as the prices on the houses, I mean, historically, that's just what it does. I mean, the only years right after 2009 was when we really had issues with, for sustainable years. Other than that, I don't have that chart in front of me, but I don't think there was more than 2 years where it was, down or negative. Other than that, it was just every now and then there was.
And that was 70
years.
something years of increase over 90.
It was 73 over 81.
Wow,
Yes.
that is
So,
really close to 100%.
yes.
Wow, that's incredible.
So
So you can look at the data and say that your chances of your property being worth more money are pretty much 90% or something. And even last year, through all the volatility, all 3 counties in our area had appreciation.
it's crazy. It's crazy. And then you just don't get hung up on the national news. You got to figure their job is headlines. Their job is to get you to watch them. And if they said everything's okay, you'd be like, well, good, I'm going to go garden for a little while. They can create some fear. Then you're going to come back and watch.
Mhm.
And, so yeah, the math, when it's all said and done, doesn't lie. And even though I really feel like there's just been some crazy stuff coming out, just skewing some of the numbers, they can't keep that up forever. And investors are smart. And when it's all said and done, that's what's going to determine where people are putting their money and mortgage-backed securities and some of the longer term stuff, because the economy, I mean, it's not perfect right now, but when was it ever? You're either going up a little bit, going down, whatever. But I do think that it is a good time to buy. And I tried to convince myself it wasn't, because it wasn't feeling like it. We just weren't doing a lot of business. And then I took one evening for 5 hours, just working it all the way down to having the best investment gal, investing your money and how much you would make on your down payment that you just have sitting around, as opposed to having a house appreciating for you and the tax write-offs and the rents going up on your house. And there is just a lot of reasons to be a homeowner.
And you get a place to live
That's true.
that nobody's going to sell
Tell you
out
what,
from under you or make you move so they can move in.
tell you
But,
what color paint you could paint that bathroom. So yeah, do whatever you want in your own
Yep.
house.
Yep, it's
Now.
being a homeowner is pretty cool. But I just like how you bring it down to the numbers, because it's still pencils. And Southern Oregon is a high demand area. So where some of the other parts of the country are probably going to have more of a slump than we are, or we did. Yeah, our values are still holding their own.
This is just a rare place. I mean, I was over in Bend yesterday, and that's a cool place too, for different reasons. But this keeps everybody so close to where they came from, unfortunately or fortunately, now from California. And it's just not far to get up here from the Bay Area or the Sacramento area or wherever. So, and the coast is a lot closer here than it is in Bend. So there'll be demand.
Yep, they're still coming. And we have less than a minute left, but I just wanted to throw out that extra 4% tax on the LA homeowners that have a property of $5 million or more, up to, there's another tier. So that just went into effect April 1st, which was just, a week ago. So we're sure getting a lot of those folks because they can sell, pay their tax, they can choke that down and come here and still have more than enough money to buy not only a home, but probably a rental.
Yes, that's, I didn't realize they found a new level of stupid down there.
And we're going to talk more about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. Hold that thought. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. We're talking to Giles today of Mutual Mortgage. And right before the break, we were talking about not only buyer demand, but some of the things happening in our neighbor to the south, California. And the reason we're bringing that up is because that extra, what they call mansion tax that they're imposing in Los Angeles on those homeowners is actually going to be driving more people our way. So again, I'm gonna say it one more time. I'm worried about having way more demand than we do supply.
Yeah, it is kind of a special time right now, as far as, I wouldn't think I'd be just encouraging people to get something, when rates are up like they are, but it's just becoming abundantly clear that it is really a good time to buy. I mean, we don't need all that extra competition. Once school lets out, then everybody will be taking their vacations up here and they'll be finding out what a cool place this is. I was actually, because I went to Bend yesterday, they have that gauge up on top, and I don't remember seeing it at 10.5 feet before. So this is just after you get off 62, like you're heading down that long road to by Diamond Lake.
Are you talking about snow level?
It said 10.5 feet. I stopped and took a picture.
That's awesome.
Of it. I know.
The lakes are going to be full.
I know. Finally, I think Shasta's within 20 feet right now, and yeah, we're gonna have good lakes.
Well, and again, every time people, like you just said, people come and visit for a weekend and then they buy a house.
So I would encourage you and your families or whatever, just get out there and start looking right now.
So what kind of concessions are you seeing on the contracts that are coming through your office? Are people pretty consistently getting some closing credit from the sellers?
They actually still are. We haven't, I don't think, hit that bottom yet. Like I said, the rates I think are going to come down pretty good, pretty quick, and it'll be a very short time before there's the multiple offers. But we are seeing concessions, and I don't know what the numbers are on that. Those are things that I don't really have access to. I can only see what's coming through my door. But I did hear a statistic not that long ago, and I make up enough statistics as it is. I don't want to do that again on something that's not my side, because usually I can get pretty close. But I think it was pretty crazy how much people were actually giving up to get you in their house. They're anxious to move on to their next venture also. And
well, and it's critical for these sellers, like you just said, to get on with their next venture. That means they have to close the deal now. And that's something I think people forget, that the whole reason they've got a sign in their yard is so that they can get it done. And if you price it reasonably, then you will sell in 30 days. More than 50% of the properties should be selling in 30 days or less, regardless of the kind of market. That's by Alice. That's Alice's opinion. However, we still have some properties that are priced high and they don't get the traffic. And then they have to start doing a series of reductions. But it'll be interesting as these new buyers start to come back into the market. Maybe that will encourage more sellers to list their house this spring.
Well, and another way to look at this is, I don't think, I guess because of inflation and just over the years, the number is naturally going to be maybe the highest. But we right now have more equity in our houses than we ever have before because of all of these years of them going up. So say you are one of these people that, everything's great. You got your check, you bought a boat, a side-by-side, you have some credit card debt. Maybe when you sell your house, you're thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to sell my 3.5% rate and trade it in for a 6.25% rate. What if you paid off some of those debts with the equity in your house when you sold, And now all of a sudden you have $1,200 less in payments for that. So even though this new house it might be up a little bit from where you were on your house, your overall expenditures per month could go down. I've got some calculators that I've ran with some people that have come in and wanted to refinance so that they could consolidate some of that debt. And we just kind of call it their blended rate with all their payments and everything together. And, I mean, gut reaction is no, higher rate, that doesn't make sense, but it would be the same thing for them doing a cash out refinance and saving $1,000 a month if they sell. Instead of, if you have a decent credit score, which your credit score should go up if you pay those debts off, and we can do a rapid rescore and do that pretty instant within just a couple of days. Mortgage insurance isn't super expensive. So now you might have a good credit score, and now you only have 10% down or 15% down your mortgage insurance. I've seen it as low as $23, $24 a month.
Wow.
That's a whole lot lower than a car payment, a credit card payment. And, obviously the best way to do it is just not get into that kind of debt to begin with. But if you find yourself there's some options that, just getting creative a little bit and sitting down. And that's, I think, one thing we lost through COVID is I sat down with people all the time. And I rarely do at this point, but those are deeper conversations. I like to go through the credit report with people and not try to get them to do something else so I can do a bigger loan from them. It makes no difference to me if my loan's $20,000 more, but we might be able to put you in a way better position than you were in before by just having a prolonged conversation that, by the way, you'll never have with Rocket Boy or whoever the heck these guys are on TV.
We're not naming the competition.
No, we didn't. We made up a name.
No, we didn't. No, we did, but that was funny. And if you have a home and you're not in love with it, then we still have more buyers than sellers, and the rates are coming down. So this is almost like you said, Guy, the perfect storm, and it's temporary. It's like we don't know how many months we're going to have this kind of blended environment. But if you don't love your house and you can get it on the market this spring, you're going to do pretty well. And the amount of equity that even people who have only had their home a couple of years, I think that's where the big offset comes in the next payment for the new place, is because you've got such a big down payment.
That's true too. Even if you don't have debt to pay off, now you got something else going for you. And and again, if you miss the lowest rate, we can have a talk about doing a refinance at some point. And I can't say it enough. It's always my heart to try to get you into the right loan the first time, so you don't have to go through that again. But we're trying to minimize the cost and all that if that's the case. And
until they make you in charge of everything, you're not going to be able to do much about it except react like we do.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest thing is just to, like I said, get in there with Alice and have her do a CMA. She's not going to yell at you if you don't list your house, but really find out what it's really worth right now. And, having the facts is what really helps you to make a decision. And if you're just kind of guessing because the house down the street sold for this or that, or, maybe that person had to sell it because it was in, for whatever reason, and you really don't know what your house is worth unless you have a professional come in and do it.
Well, and I really like how data driven you are, Guy, because there's no emotion. The numbers don't lie. And I just think people need to spend more time running the big picture, not just the interest rate. Guy, thank you so much for being on. We look forward to having you on again next month.
Well, hey, sounds good. Thank you very, very much.
Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage Insurance. Thank you for also being a sponsor. This will repeat tomorrow at 6:30. Have a beautiful weekend. Hug those you love.